Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new tutorial for Winston. As you can see, I'm currently practicing my performance ritual for the tree. As in numbany, trees are sacred and we must protect them. For now, I'll show you how to play Winston on numbany. Let's get started. But let's first talk about a few things about numbany itself. Because you see, numbany is a special kind of hybrid map. The point is completely surrounded by high ground. This makes it very difficult for the attacking team to actually capture this payload. This also makes Winston surprisingly strong and popular for this map section, unlike most of the time where you will get flamed if you don't play Reinhardt. What is also very important to note is that attackers will almost all the time take these stairs and try to take the high ground from you by pushing through this very small choke. Usually this is not very successful and may take several attempts. Sometimes they don't even manage to capture the payload. But if they do capture the point and push the payload, then the roles will be reversed. Because the attackers will have super close spawns and will respawn extremely quickly, unlike the defenders, whose spawn is all the way in the back. Now, for the last part of numbany, the defenders have the advantage again with their short spawns and their long sidelines. However, the attackers can still continue the snowball and have 3 to 5 minutes left on the clock. Or the defenders will keep holding the attackers down for several minutes or the entirety of the game. This can make numbany really a roller coaster of emotions. But without further ado, let's explain how you play Winston on numbany. Now for this part of the video, I will activate my HUD now and show you a few important things for if you are defending point A as Winston. The first thing you will want to keep in mind is to maybe destroy the railings, because they can be quite annoying in general. Another thing is that this sign can be bumped against if you are trying to move upwards. It can even completely shut down your jump, and you really need to be careful with that, because if that happens, that may result in your death. Now of course, another thing to keep in mind is to leave a spray over here to intimidate the incoming attackers as they are walking in. But in all seriousness, if you are defending as Winston on point A, you want to defend this hallway usually, because usually the enemy team will try to take this hallway to get the high ground. Just remember to place your bubble when you're standing about over here, so the edge of your bubble will be on this small side of the hallway and you will be protected from the enemy team safely when attacking them. You then, once your bubble is broken, hide behind the wall and just re-peek a few times till you have to reload. Also keep in mind that there might be a sniper or a Genji taking the high ground over there. They might also be pocketed, but that doesn't really matter. If that is the case, if you see that happening, you immediately jump for them. As long as you have some armor left, it doesn't matter if you have your bubble or not. Now they will either immediately drop down or fight you. When they are dropping down, very quickly drop down as well and take the health back before they do. And if they are not dropping down, just take the health back the moment you lose too much HP. There are of course a few extra things to keep in mind. If at the start of the game you have a DPS over here shooting at the enemy, you want to be standing right next to them and pay attention to what the enemy is doing. Anticipate when a enemy is gonna be able to shoot at your fellow DPS, or when your DPS and you are gonna take a lot of damage, and place your bubble accordingly. You don't want to waste your bubble because it doesn't last for very long. Another thing to keep in mind is that there might be flankers coming from this side or flankers coming from over here. You want to ignore them because you can never deal with them. And sometimes the enemy team has a superior front line, or you don't have any spam over here, or you have DPS over there that want to be able to shoot the enemy team. In that case, they can just walk out of the hallway and you can just drop down. You wait for your bubble to be back, you walk in line of sight of your healers who might be over there or might be over there, and you wait for the enemy tanks to be somewhat over there or maybe drop down towards the point. Then you will take a soft dive at the edge of the platform, isolate the enemy tanks from their supports and DPS by doing this, and repeat this process until they die. If there is a DPS over here once you have dropped, you need to retreat by jumping behind this pillar. Other than that, you don't need to stress when they are capturing the payload. You can give up tags, you can give up time. You just want to make sure to win the team fight. So you have decided to play Winston on defense on the payload part of the numbany. Quite a bold move, since Winston is significantly weaker on the payload version of numbany, especially the last point. But I will like your style and I will point out how you can make it work. If your team is with you and not having themselves staggered, you can actually hold the front line over here around this corner for a small period of time, as they will usually take a lot of damage when they are peeking over here. Then if you need to retreat a bit and they are able to peek you over here, you can hide behind this wall and wait for your bubble to come back and still let them take a lot of damage. If they are still pushing you and actually they are almost walking into the small room with you, you quickly have to retreat behind this bus. Now if the enemy payload is about over here, about to descend towards the low ground, you can actually walk behind this bus, be in cover of the payload, be in cover of these obstacles, and access the backline without even using your jump, simply because you were entirely behind cover. Then you can use your jump towards this tree over here, then hide, maybe get healed up. If it's a lower rank, you might not get healed up. In that case, you can simply take the health pack over here and hide behind this rhino. Now because it's a lower rank, they might not notice you and you can simply hide over here. Wait for the enemy tanks to push up a bit, then go for the backline that might be over here. Then if you need to jump away again, simply take the high ground over here. If your bubble is about to break, you can just camp over here now without even taking a lot of damage. And you will repeat the same process again. You wait for the backline to be right under you. You attack them, use your bubble, then jump away. In this case towards the rhino again. And hopefully this does allow you to effectively create a lot of space and slow them down just enough for your team to actually stop the snowball that usually occurs on the second part of numbany. Now if you are defending the last point of numbany, it is always useful to stay on the high ground with a fellow DPS over here, so you can protect them with a bubble as they are shooting down at the enemies. If they are taking the high ground, you need to avoid staying in this room and staying in this room, and instead hide behind this corner. If they are not taking the high ground though and are pushing the payloads, you can hold this corner over here like a main tank. But what is even better is if they don't know that you are hiding over here. Keep in mind that you need to be crouched in order for that to happen, because otherwise they might see you through this gap. Then you wait for the backline to show up and then you attack them. Another thing you can do is, if you are aware that they have dive, you can just hide in this small room over here and you can listen to which side they are taking, because usually they will try to take the high ground first. If they are coming towards you, immediately get out of the room and hold these two chokes over here. If they come the other way, just jump onto them as they are peeking out of here. In general, this is quite a good spot to camp for if they are taking the high ground, or if you're playing in a high ranked game and you need to hide behind them to go for the backline. Other than that, the last spot you can hide as Winston on defense is this spot over here, where you will wait for a DPS to show up, or just wait for the payload to push past this corner, and as you will walk behind this corner and attack the backline. That is all there is to it for defense. Let's move on to attack. Now the primary goal for Winston when attacking, of course, is contesting the DPS and support on high ground by using his jump. He also wants to try to stay alive and takes as less poke damage as humanly possible. Usually when he walks out of spawn, a Winston will face some spam damage from over there. What you can do is quickly jump towards this boss to avoid the spam damage and resist the urge to use your bubble, cause you might have a DPS over there that you need to contest and you need your bubble for that. If there is a DPS over here, you simply jump onto them. They will likely retreat, and the moment your bubble breaks, you will take the health pack over here and maybe try it again. You can then also try to peek over here and see where the enemy exactly is and if there are some enemies over there. If you see some enemies over there and you have enough HP, you can quickly try to jump onto them. This of course is only effective if you have your team going with you, like in a dive comp, or if your team is now pushing the high ground that way at the same time you are doing this. Otherwise it is not nearly as effective. Another thing to keep in mind is that you still can get shot at from over there, meaning if you lose too much HP, you can jump towards this low ground over here, take the health pack in a small room, and then proceed to dive the enemies over here in the backline, on the high ground. Now it can also be the case that these heroes over here will drop off the high ground and chase you down in this small room. If that happens, that is completely fine, because that means they have given up the high ground and your team freely has the high ground now. You also come back from spawn relatively quickly, making this completely a-okay if you die here in this room and you made the entire team drop off the high ground for you. Another thing to keep in mind is that sometimes there won't be a lot of enemies over here or any enemies, and most of them will be over there. Maybe they will have some kind of spam comp, or they will just be very grouped up. In that case, you cannot really jump onto the platform or jump for the backline without instantly dying. What you can do, however, is be very quickly and play like a sneaky monkey. You will hug this wall over here, then proceed to contest the payload. This usually will make the enemy team panic, and maybe an enemy Reinhardt or enemy tank will drop down. If someone drops down, you jump back towards your team and secure the high ground over here. Then, once you have eliminated enough people, you will capture the point and you will start the snowballing. Now once you have captured the payload, you cannot really do a lot as Winston, besides just being very aggressive with your jump and frontlining the enemy team as they may stagger. If they are not staggered and actually grouped up, you cannot really do a lot as Winston, so just play very safely as a frontline hero and hold the corners like this and like this. You can also take the high ground over here and just see where the enemy is, look for the backline and drop onto them. If they're a bit further in the back, you can also come through this small hallway over here and then drop onto them. If there's an enemy all the way over there, then it is quite risky to walk out of that hallway. I would just recommend staying over here for a little while and fend the remaining enemies further in the back. Then move to the left flank all the way around, and then you can acquire the high ground. If there is no one here yet, that is fine, because you can still camp over here if you are pushing the payloads all the way over here. Because maybe a DPS or support will show up over here on the high ground, and you can contest them. Also, if the enemy tanks and DPS are shooting at your front line, at your team, contesting the payload, and you've counted like 3 or 4 people, and you hear the remaining supports and squishy heroes under you, you can just drop down, zap them, and move back very safely by walking first around this pillar and then jumping on the pillar. Keep in mind you cannot instantly jump because you will bump your head against that pillar over there. Other than that, for the last point, there is really not a lot to it. You are quite weak as Winston because of all these long sidelines. The best thing you can do is hope your teammates are snowballing them and just hold over here close to their spawn. Otherwise, you just hide around the corners of the map till you get decently close. Then you commit everything you have, your jump, your bubble, your ultimate, everything, to go for one of the backline heroes close to their spawn. This is the only thing you can do as Winston, essentially. And that is about it for Winston on numbany, I suppose. And I hope everyone has a lovely time playing numbany and has learned a little bit more about Winston. I wish you all the best of luck, and I wish you all a very happy day. Goodbye.